Get your win at WallaceWins.com.
We'd like to welcome a very special guest in studio today, the famous personal injury attorney, Gerald L. Marcus.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Welcome.
Thanks, Brad.
Welcome, Jerry. Welcome. Listen, since we started this podcast, you have been one of my target guests to get in here as one of our first guests. So we're happy to have you in studio.
I love being here. Thanks for asking.
And just as a background on Jerry Marcus, for those of you living under a rock who may not know, Jerry has been practicing personal injury law in California for nearly 30 years. When I came out of law school, my first job was working for Jerry for about 8 years and really learned the majority of what I know about the business from Jerry. He's been a mentor and a friend to me, and we remain very, very close to this day. And it's really a pleasure to have you in studio, Jerry.
Thanks. And I hate to admit it, but it's been 37 years I've been doing this.
Wow.
So it makes me that much older. But yeah, it's great to see you grow and develop and as a trial lawyer, and now you have your own podcast. Pretty cool situation.
Who knew, right?
Yeah.
So we like to start off every podcast with a segment called Rapid Fire.
Let's do it.
And so I'm going to list out rapidly a series of questions for which I want you to give me either a one-word or a couple-word answer.
Okay, on the spot.
All right, are you ready?
I'm always ready.
All right, here we go. Rapid Fire's underway. Coolest place you've ever been to?
Capri in Italy.
Best sport to watch?
Basketball.
Best sport to play?
Golf.
Movie you've seen more than any other?
A Few Good Men.
First band you saw live?
The Rolling Stones.
Best city you've ever lived in?
Los Angeles.
Nicest golf course you've ever played?
Southern Highlands. Las Vegas.
Most famous person you've ever met?
Believe it or not, probably Britney Spears as the most famous person.
Best month of the year?
October.
Favorite sports team?
Clippers.
Don't do it to me, Jerry.
I have to. I'm loyal. Die
I
hard.
walked into that one.
Yeah.
Coolest car you've ever owned?
Mercedes, AMG, GTS, two-door.
Coolest piece of sports memorabilia you own?
I have an Oscar de la Hoya actual robe that he wore during a fight against Chavez, like back in the early 2000s. It's in a huge case, signed gloves, his signed shorts, and his robe. That's pretty cool, special.
Childhood hero?
It was probably one of the Dodgers back then. It could have been Maury Wills, Willie Davis.
And finally, hidden talent most people don't know you have?
I'm working on the guitar right now, so I could play a little guitar. That's my new talent.
All right, very good. That was rapid fire. See, we get it going.
I like that.
Right
I like
out of the
pace.
gate.
I like the pace.
It's just right out of the gate. You know, it gets us warmed up. It gets us, in the vibe of the podcast. And, the guests were able to learn a little bit more about, some really interesting facts.
They know the Clippers are my favorite team.
Yeah.
If they didn't already know that.
Listen, you know what they say. No one's perfect,
And it's true.
So I'll give you that one.
Very profound.
You guys are going to at least be going into a nice arena in a couple seasons, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into it. Obviously, we did the introduction. You've been doing personal injury plaintiff work for many, many years. You've represented thousands and thousands of clients. You've really, from firsthand knowledge, I can say you've really seen it all. You've done it all. For you, what is the most meaningful part of being a personal injury attorney?
The most meaningful part is changing somebody's life for the better, taking a tough case, a case that may have been rejected by other attorneys, denied, disputed, where the odds are against you, and taking that case, having your client believe in you, going the distance, and getting a really good result, and knowing that it positively impacts that person forevermore. So that's more rewarding to me than all the money and all those things. At the end of the day, when the client hugs you, when they know that, it's going to change your life. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. No, and I know that firsthand, that connection to the clients is so important. That's something that I took from the years that I was at your firm. And and continue to, kind of really abide by with my practice as well. So now pivoting from that, what would you say currently is the most challenging part for you of being a personal injury attorney?
Well, for me, I wear several hats. So the challenging part is I love to be an attorney, a trial lawyer, and practicing and in the ring and in the fight. But I'm also the businessman. So I'm running a business and doing marketing and managing people, which I also enjoy. I love being in the trenches and immersed in the fabric of my business and of being a personal injury attorney. The most challenging part is that balance and that kind of conflict sometime of how much time to invest in one or the other. And you always want to land on the right side, which is for the client, for the case, to the extent it may hurt the business even temporarily, but in the big picture, you're doing the right thing. But it's a challenge. It's a conflict, dividing your time daily, weekly, over the course of the year.
Yeah, totally agree. So in furtherance of that, for anyone out there that is a small business owner that is juggling that same kind of challenge between, getting their hands dirty with whatever the business requires, and then on the other hand, managing the business, managing the people, managing the marketing, what is your best advice as to how to navigate that and, properly prioritize what needs to happen in order to be successful?
Right. So for me, I think it's important, if you love what you do, if you're passionate about what you do, whether you're a plaintiff trial lawyer or you're a salesperson, a plumber, real estate, whatever, you own a business, that you're passionate, you love it, and it defines who you are. So it's not a 9-to-5 job. It's 24/7, 365 days a year. And if you have that mindset and you're all in on it, then everything you do, whether you're home or at the office, revolves around the business and your business or the practice of law, whatever it is. You just can't kind of, be half in. You have to be all in. And then there's balance. It's balance. You have to take care of yourself. You have to take a break. You have to take a vacation. But, to juggle the business side versus the actual, the management of the business, and then the making money, having clients, selling a product, whatever it is, you just have to be passionate and know that's what you do forever. You're passionate about it.
And as you're saying that, what came to mind for me is kind of that old adage that you hear people say, like, does this person work to live or do they live to work? Does that kind of like...
Yeah, the live to work. It's like, I tell people all the time, like, we're at work. We're not on vacation. That's why they call it work. They don't call it vacation. But you have to have a good environment where you work or with the people that you work so that it's not, it's not hard. It's not something that you dread going to when you get out of bed and when you leave your house and you go to your office or your store, whatever it is. If you have the feeling that, oh my God, this is just another tough day, you're doing the wrong thing. You're fooling yourself. Then it's, working to live, and it's a 9-to-5 and you can't wait to get out of there. But if your life revolves around who you are in your business profession and you love it, then I can't wait to get into the office. I can't wait for the next challenge, the next issue, the next problem that I always try to think of the solution. I always think positively, but every day there's hurdles, challenges, and you want to overcome every one of those. And there's no shortcuts.
Right.
The other part of this to me is, when I'm giving advice to younger people about business, whether it's as an attorney or otherwise, there's just no shortcuts. Things are a lot easier now than they used to be with the internet, with Google, with online, with fast, with, social media. Everything is right there. And it wasn't like that when I started. So it's a little bit easier, but that shouldn't make it, less hard to work. You have to work hard, put in the time, invest all of you with all the information and all the resources so that you can be the best that you can be in any field, whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting you're saying that because I recently had the opportunity to hear a keynote speech at a conference from Kara Lawson, who's the head coach of the Duke women's basketball team. And one of the things she talks about is you can't have this mentality of like, oh, if I can just get this done, then things will get easier. Or, oh, if I just get past this hurdle, things will get easier. Because in life, nothing gets easier. It actually continues to get harder, but it's about, basically, what's the phrase she uses? She basically says, you have to learn how to handle hard better. And as you go along in life, things don't really get easier. You just get more experienced, and you get more experience under your belt. And so as things get harder, you're able to handle those things moving forward. But it's to have an idea of, if I can just get done with this, then my life will get easier, is the wrong mentality to have.
Right. To further that, I completely agree with that. That, every day there's a challenge. There's something that you haven't done, you haven't been confronted with. You question yourself. There's fear involved, which fear is the best motivator. But you have to lean forward. And if you do it, you overcome it, whether you fail, get up, do it again, whatever. The next time, whether it's next week, next year, 5 years from now, you're going to have the same challenges. But having done those things before and having the confidence instilled in you that, like you do in your practice every day, I've had that case. I've taken that deposition. I've tried that issue. I've been before this judge or defense attorney, whatever it is. I got this. Now, it's not going to be less hard. You're probably going to work even harder, but you have all that experience in your database in you. So you have that higher level of confidence leaning forward and doing it, but it doesn't make it easier.
Right.
It's just different.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. All right. Now, just continuing on with the, kind of talking about your practice currently, what would you say is the most common question you get from clients on a daily basis?
Okay. So obviously it's limited to being a personal injury attorney. The typical questions right out of the gate with a new client is, how long will my case take? How long is this going to last? The second probably most popular question is, how much is my case worth?
Right.
And they want those answers. And I'm used to that. And I tell people that work with me, the way that I answer those questions truthfully as possible. You don't want to give a client an unrealistic expectation. And you don't want to appeal to that sense of not bad greed, but greed that we all have in us about how much am I going to get? These people are entitled to something. So you don't want to kind of mislead them into thinking a case is worth more than it is. On the other hand, with your confidence level, you have to give them examples of similar cases that you've handled. So I do that. I always revert back to, I've handled 17,000 cases, probably 1,000 are just like yours. It could be worth between A or C, depending on, and I fill in the gap. Same with how long will it take? Some cases might take 3 to 6 months. It's all relative. And some might take 3 to 4 or 5 years. So, but those two questions are daily questions, not just from brand new clients, but clients who have been treating with a doctor for a while and they're following up and they just want to know, hey, how long am I going to go to the doctor?
Right.
How long will this take?
Right.
What am I going to get?
Yeah.
Typical.
And those, I think, are just boil down to, like, if I wasn't an attorney and I was injured in an accident and I needed a lawyer, those would probably be the first two questions I would ask.
Right. Why am I doing this?
Yeah. Is it worth it? How much is this worth? And how long is it going to take?
Right.
And what's involved? And what do I have to do? And what are you going to do? And all that kind of stuff.
Totally reasonable questions. So for me, you have to respond with a reasonable and realistic answer so that you're not just appeasing them, you're not misleading them, but you have to give them information based on your experience or they're going to lack the trust or the confidence in you in moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that for potential clients, at least in my experience, that come and contact my office and are interested in retaining us, and knowing that they're talking to other firms as well and kind of doing their due diligence, which I always recommend for people to do. When I take that approach, the approach that you just outlined of giving them realistic expectations, not promising them something that realistically shouldn't be promised to them, not, telling them that you're going to get them a specific result when there's no real basis at the outset of a case to be able to do that many times. I think that potential clients, when comparing that to what other attorneys in the industry may tell them, find that to be refreshing.
I agree.
Because they know at the outset that if I'm being real with them about those questions and not trying to sell them just to sell them, that I'm a trustworthy person that's going to be real with them throughout the representation of their case.
Right. And I do the same thing. And if I'm being interviewed, so to speak, for the opportunity to represent someone, and I know that this prospective client is shopping, they've seen talked to a couple of attorneys, or they're probably going to do that, I encourage them, because I know I'm going to take the time at the beginning to try and answer all their questions, do it my way, be me, be real, just like you said. And then I'll say, look, there's no pressure here. You should call up a couple of other attorneys. And if you hear, first of all, most of the time most attorneys aren't going to take as much time as I think we take or you take. But, if that satisfies you, whatever they tell you, then good for you. You should go with them. Most of the time they wind up calling back because they didn't get to talk to the attorney himself or herself, or the attorney doesn't take as much time, or they don't answer the questions to the liking of the prospective client.
Or alternatively, they contact another firm and that firm is being super aggressive to try to pressure them to sign.
Right.
And they just don't get that same feeling of trust.
Right.
Because I tell potential clients all the time, I say, especially in big injury and wrongful death cases, deciding which attorney to hire to represent you or your family could eventually become one of the most important financial decisions you ever make in your life. Because in a big injury case or a wrongful death case that, ends up with a result that's a large sum of money, you're talking about a situation where the decision between attorney A and attorney B could mean the difference between potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And so in order to make that decision, you have to hire somebody that you trust.
Absolutely.
And so in order to know who you feel comfortable with, you have to talk to a couple of people and you have to get a sense of who they are and really take the time to interview. And I think for the clients or the potential clients that do that, not only, to your point, do we often end up being retained in those situations, but also, it really allows them to know that they've made the right decision and they're not feeling pressured into something.
Right. I to take that one step further, I agree that they have to feel that they trust you. And talking to 2 or 3 or 4 attorneys, people are smart. They know they've been involved in a horrible situation, in a serious injury case. It's life-changing. It's them. It's their family. They've lost a loved one. And they hear from people outside, the noise, the barking, about attorneys and to go here, go there. So they're going to interview 2, 3, 4 attorneys, and they're going to get that instinct. Their instinct, their inside smarts is going to tell them, yeah, I trust this guy. I believe you. And they do their own homework. But after that, and this is really important, after that, trust is earned beyond that. So once you get that case, it's important, and in particular, it should be with every case, but with the more serious injury cases, that you stay in touch with the client, that you get to know the client, that you meet with the client, that you go to their house throughout the case, because you're going to spend a lot of time with that person and with their family over the course of a 2, 3, 4-year case. And the first time you meet them or spend time with them shouldn't be 2 years after they retained you.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So then kind of furthering this, obviously we talked about from the outset that you've been doing this for 37 years and still going strong.
Still going.
And so from your perspective, where do you see your practice in 5 years?
It's a good question. So I'm going through that right now. Good question.
That's why I got the podcast.
Yeah.
These are the hard-hitting questions, folks.
Yeah. So at my stage, I can tell you that I don't see myself retiring or stopping practicing, or I just refer to as I represent people. I help people. And that's why I really refer to it. And I enjoy that. There are parts of the business that are, they're difficult, they're frustrating, they're conflicting. I like that too. But, I've been doing this 37 years. I've been in this business, in this industry, if you will, for 43 years. So since I was 20 years old, that's when I first really got into it. So it's a lifetime. So I see myself not retiring, doing this for as long as I could do it. The only changes are to kind of come up and get with the technology of what's going on. Everybody now is paperless. Everybody's got digital access to the cloud for case management systems. And I'm starting to transition into that as we speak because I'm still pretty old school. We have our case management programs and systems and backups, but we have paper files. And I like the paper. I like to see it, touch it, feel it, take it home with me. So right now we're transitioning, number one. So that's for the future, to be more efficient, to be able to work a little bit more remotely for everybody if they want to do that. And then secondly, I hate to say to be more selective with the cases, because there's still something inside of me that doesn't want to turn away a case that it's a small case that a lot of attorneys would never take. It's too small. It's not economically feasible. Why would you take that? You can't make any money. And I believe, those people are as important, if not more important, than the obviously injured person, because they need representation. They need a voice. They need someone to fight their battle. And without someone like you or me or others like us that'll go to war for someone with a small case, they have nothing. And the insurance industry will take advantage of them and they will get nothing. There's no question about it. So that drives me. So it's hard to scale it down. But I don't know, it's hard to answer that really specifically other than I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I'm surrounded by good people that I trust, that work hard, that love what they do. You and I work together, which is great to have an association on cases and bounce ideas back. I'm still motivated and I'm inspired. You're in trial right now,
right?
Which is, I'm proud of you because you came to me like right out of law school and everything you've accomplished and tried all these cases. It's amazing, but that inspires me. I want to go to trial. I want to get off the bench. I want to be in court. I haven't been in court in a while.
Right.
So I still have that in me and I want to keep having it. I think when that dies down, that's when I'll wind it down, but I hope it stays with me for as long as I can go.
Yeah, totally. If you have that fire, you got the fire. Okay, awesome. All right, so we are going to go into our next segment of the podcast, and this segment is called Underrated, Overrated. So I'm going to give you different topics, and I need you to tell me, whether you think it's underrated or overrated, and a brief explanation why.
I will try.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
SoCal weather.
Underrated. Yeah, great weather. On balance, 10 months out of the year, you could golf 10, 11 months out of the year.
New Year's Eve.
Overrated. Yeah, when I was younger, you go out, you party, you're up all night. Now it's like, let's celebrate New Year's Eve, New York time, 9:00, and we're done.
Talking to strangers on an elevator.
Underrated. It's nice to look and see who's around you, open your mouth, how you doing, have a nice day. I think that's really important.
FaceTime calls.
Well, I'm big on that right now because my daughter, son-in-law, and 2 of my grandchildren live in New Orleans. So we FaceTime every single day after work when I get home from work. And without that, I'd be going to New Orleans a lot more. My wife, Corey, Corey left this morning to go to New Orleans. It's like her 12th trip in 10 months. So,
hi, Corey.
Yeah. So FaceTime I think is great.
Awesome. Succession.
One of the best shows I've seen so far this year, last year. Loved it. And it got better and better and better.
Agreed. Yeah. I was sad to see that it is ending.
Yeah, great show.
Ranch dressing.
Hate it. I don't like white creamy dressings. Not my thing. No mayonnaise, no ranch. Next.
Insurance defense attorneys.
That's a case-by-case situation. So I have very close friends who are the salt of the earth and exceptionally good insurance defense attorneys, trial lawyers. On the other hand, you know, they're humans. They're people too, just like plaintiff attorneys. There are some that I can't figure out. You know, they have a chip on their shoulder. They take everything personally. They're hard to deal with. They're not civil. And you're like I am. You know, you try to be as civil and professional as possible with your adversary, work as much out as you can, but fight the good fight. They're doing a job. You're doing a job. Have mutual respect. So I respect those that get that principle, that philosophy. But the ones that don't get it, they're not my cup of tea.
Fireworks.
I like fireworks. I would say maybe a little underrated, actually. The kid inside of me, I like to see those fireworks.
All right. Food deliveries with Postmates.
I don't know if it's underrated or overrated. I could tell you that
You got to pick one.
Okay. It's probably then on my standard underrated because the convenience factor is you don't have to interrupt your day for anything.
Starbucks.
Overrated. Coffee's coffee to me.
Sleeping more than 7 hours a night.
Can't do it. Yeah. Probably overrated. Even if I wanted to, I wouldn't. You know, I fall asleep when I fall asleep and I wake up early without an alarm clock.
All right. There you have it. Overrated, underrated. All right. I want to bring up something that happened recently in terms of legal news. I'm going to read for you a little excerpt. Personal injury lawyer Stephen Schwartz of the law firm Levido, and Oberman faced a sanction hearing just yesterday in New York in front of U.S. District Court Judge P. Kevin Castle after he filed a legal brief in support of his airline injury case that cited to 6 fake cases that do not exist. It turns out Schwartz used ChatGPT to prepare his legal brief and failed to cite check the cases provided by the artificial intelligence model, and later submitted an affidavit to the court explaining that he had mistakenly relied on the accuracy of the information that ChatGPT had provided. At yesterday's sanction hearing, he again stated to the judge, quote, "I did not comprehend that ChatGPT could fabricate." At yesterday's hearing, he again stated, quote, "I did not comprehend that ChatGPT could fabricate cases," he told Judge Castle. So obviously big news in the legal world. But my question for you is, how important do you think AI will be to the practice of law in the coming years?
Okay, so right out of the gates, I'm not a fan of AI in the practice of law for mainly that reason. I understand that's where it's going. I see it now more and more, and it probably will, I don't know, over the course of the next 5-10 years, take its place with a good percentage of what attorneys across the board are doing, whether it's discovery or demand writing, or in this instance, brief writing and authority support or something. But I'm not a fan of it at all for this reason. Number one, it goes back to you have to put in the work. Now, if you've done the work manually and now you're doing it again, you're still putting in the work, you know the resources, you know the basis for the information, you've done the research, it's valid, you're not going to have problems. Whether you're right or wrong on the argument is a completely different issue. But if the AI is doing what just happened to this attorney, which I understand how that happens, but in part you do have to hold that attorney responsible for that. The buck stops with him. He's relying on something really important, you know, a legal brief submitted to a court on a pretty important issue in a case, and he didn't kind of fact check or authority check it or have someone in his office do it, which I think sounds completely irresponsible. But that, I think, is the problem with AI moving forward, that more and more attorneys in the legal field will just rely on whatever the AI is as being accurate and credible and the authority, when we see right here, right out of the gates, it's not. So I'm not a fan of that.
Very good. All right. Now I want to get into some, kind of more introspective questions. And, these are some of these questions that, you might not always think about on a day-to-day basis, but is sometimes often good to kind of contemplate. So first off, if you weren't a lawyer and you could be or do anything, what would it be?
That's pretty easy. If I could be anything or do anything, it would be one of two things. It would either be a professional basketball player, NBA basketball player, great point guard, like the best ever, or a great singer-songwriter, like old school Jackson Browne, James Taylor, that kind of thing. Like, to me, if I wasn't doing this, I wouldn't want to be an astronaut or a doctor maybe, but it's one of those two.
Got it. I would go check you out. Like if you had a residency in Vegas, I would get some front row tickets.
There
and
you
watch
go.
that.
I comp you on that.
I love it. I love it. All right. And now I would like for you to think about if you could give any piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would it be?
That's a good question. I'll tell you why it's a tough question. I try not to regret anything I've done in the past or what it's taken for me to get to wherever I'm at that point in my life. It could be yesterday or 10 or 20 or 30 years ago, because that's what makes you what you are. That develops your character and defines you, and you bring that experience with you. So it's hard for me to say, but if I could advise myself back then what to do or not do, it probably would have been to take the profession of practicing law slightly more seriously, and the business part of that at the beginning of my career, within the first 2, 3, 4, 5 years, a little bit more seriously. And why? Because retrospectively, when I look back, I think when I became a lawyer, I thought, this is it. I arrived. This is easy. And it wasn't easy. So I worked and I made money, but there were, failed opportunities, missed opportunities. There were things that had I done differently, maybe would have put me at a different place from a success, whatever that means, standpoint, or a financial status standpoint, maybe not, earlier in my life. But those failures or missed opportunities, whatever, the trials and tribulations, the speed bumps, were all experiences that I draw from today and yesterday and 10 years ago that made me who I am, whatever that is.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. All right. We're going to move on to the next segment, which is called Get the W or Take the L. And I'm going to walk you through a couple of recent news reports and then ask you whether something related to that gets the W or takes the L. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. A wealthy driver has been fined $129,000 for speeding in Finland, where such penalties are calculated on the basis of an offender's income. Quote, "I really regret the matter," Andres Wickloff said in the article published this past Monday. He was driving 51 miles per hour in a 31 mile an hour zone when police stopped and ticketed him on Saturday. Along with getting a fine, he had his driver's license suspended for 10 days. A native of Finland, Wickloff is chairman of a holding company that includes businesses in logistics, helicopter services, real estate, trade, and tourism sectors. So, Gerald Marcus, for basing the amount of a driver's fine on their income, does Finland get the W or take the L?
I think they take the L. My instinct is, I understand the principle, okay? You have to teach the guy a lesson. He can afford it, make him pay, hit him where it hurts him most, right, in his pocketbook. But shouldn't be punitive damages to punish him in that way. It sounds like they're discriminating against the wealthy or someone's financial status. So if someone is poverty-stricken, if they're homeless, and they happen to borrow someone's car and they get a speeding ticket, do they get to walk for nothing because they have no money? I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's kind of an unfair, discriminatory punishment or fine.
Hey, Finland, Jerry Marcus is coming for you. Watch out.
Al.
All right. And lastly, declaring a mission to liberate Taco Tuesday for all. Taco Bell is asking U.S. regulators to force Wyoming-based Taco John's to abandon its long-standing claim to the trademark. Too many businesses and others refer to Taco Tuesday for Taco John's to be able to have exclusive rights to the phrase, Taco Bell asserted in their U.S. Patent and Trademark Office filing that is, of course, dated on Tuesday. It's the latest development in a long-running beef over Taco Tuesday that even included NBA star LeBron James making an unsuccessful attempt to claim the trademark in 2019 and recently being featured in a Taco Bell commercial. Taco Bell believes Taco Tuesday is critical to everyone's Tuesday. To deprive anyone of saying Taco Tuesday, be it Taco Bell or anyone who provides tacos to the world, is like depriving the world of sunshine, Taco Bell filing reads. So for trying to force Taco John's to abandon its long-standing trademark on the phrase Taco Tuesday, including national commercials featuring King James, does Taco Bell get the W or take the L?
I'll give him the W. And not just because you're a huge LeBron fan, okay? I'm somewhat of a LeBron fan, but I'm a big Taco Bell fan. My family loves Taco Bell. Put that aside. Come on. Taco Tuesday? Like, who really cares? You know, who should own those words? That doesn't make sense. So big W for Taco Bell. Fight that fight.
All right. Shout out to Taco Bell and LeBron James. And with that, we're going to end the podcast as we can only appropriately end it. It's Taco Tuesday! Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Brad. Pleasure being here.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. This has been the WallaceWins.com podcast. Stay safe out there. Thank you.
Get your win at WallaceWins.com.